In this video, we will show you how to replace your vehicle's power steering pump on this Nissan Maxima. This will be located along the passenger side of your engine. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. We're going to remove the plastic panel that makes its way across the passenger side of the engine compartment. Along the rearward side of that plastic panel is where you're going to find a push clip. We can remove that. To remove your push clip, we're going to carefully start removing the center to unlock it and then remove the outer portion as well for full removal. Push clips can be different. Some of them you carefully unscrew the center, others you can pry it up. Some you can even push down on the center. Really depends on which type you have. This one looks like it's been replaced. Just gonna see if I can get it out of here. There we go. A quick inspection, make sure it is reusable, otherwise you do want to replace it. This one looks fine, we'll set it aside. Continue on to removing your panel. We'll just give that a quick inspection. Set that aside as well. Now we're going to remove as much fluid from inside of the power steering reservoir as possible. Obviously, for the refilling, we're going to want to make sure we have brand new fluid. For this, you can use either Nissan specific fluid or you can use Dextron 6 transmission fluid. Before removing the cap, let's make sure we clean up any miscellaneous debris along the top so nothing falls in the system. I'm just going to use a rag for this, make my way around. To remove your cap, go ahead and turn that counterclockwise, lift it straight up and out of position. Once you have it off of there, a quick inspection of your rubber seal. This one looks fine. We'll set that cap aside. Go ahead and remove as much fluid as possible from the reservoir. To remove the fluid, I'm just going to use a fluid extractor. You can also use a fluid vacuum of some sort if necessary. Now the next thing we have to do is safely raise and support the front end of the vehicle. We're going to have to make our way underneath, but first, let's go ahead and remove our passenger side front wheel. To remove the front wheel, you're going to find you have 5 21mm lug nuts. We can remove those and the wheel. With the wheel out of the way, we're having a look in this area. You can see that there's a plastic protective panel. This is held in place with 6 push pins making their way around. There's 5 up in the open here and 1 just down along the bottom holding a strap to the subframe. Let's start at the bottom there. We'll remove that and make our way back in here for the other 5. Now right down here is where we can see our strap. Start removing this push clip. Now we're back up in the wheel well, we can start removing this panel. I'm using a trim tool to remove each one of my push clips. Push clips function in different ways, but essentially the center would be what locks it in on most of these. You can either pull it out or push it in, depending on which type of push clip you're using. Either way, once you do have it out of position, just go ahead and give it a quick inspection and we'll set it aside. Now there should be 2 more making their way across the front. One of ours just fell out right now, but essentially just pull that one out and then on to the next. Now we can remove that shield. Slide that out of place. With the plastic shield out of the way, you want to have a look in this area. We can see several pulleys and we can see our serpentine belt. Take note of the routing, and then we're going to continue on at our serpentine belt tensioner. Now for this tensioner, we're going to be using a 13mm. We're going to pivot this clockwise, which will release tension from the belt. While releasing tension from the belt, we're going to make our way over to the idler pulley and we'll attempt to remove the belt from the idler pulley. Be extremely careful for any pinch points. Now the main area that we're really focusing on for this belt is really around that power steering pump pulley, so we'll just go ahead and slide it right out and away from there. That looks good. We can see a lot of the belt here, so let's just go ahead and give it a quick inspection. Make sure that the ribbed area isn't dry rotted and cracked all over the place. This one looks pretty good, so we'll just go ahead and set it aside. Now while we're up here, we're going to start taking apart a couple things so we can make our way deep down inside this area. We'll make our way along the back side of the reservoir. In this area, you're going to find that there's a small metal bracket. We don't need to dislodge the bracket so much as just the reservoir from the bracket. Along the back side, there's this small locking ear. I'm using an angled pick. Make your way in between the locking ear and the reservoir. You should be able to lift the reservoir up and out of position. Now we're going to be focusing on the hose located just along the bottom side of that reservoir. Keep in mind, as you remove this, fluid may make its way out. That's why we try to remove as much as possible. For this hose, you're going to find that it has a small squeezable clamp. We're going to go ahead and squeeze that. We'll slide it out of position, and then we should be able to remove the hose from the reservoir. To remove the hose, I'm using an angled hose pick. Just try to separate this. We're being extremely careful not to cause any damage to that hose or the reservoir. We are reusing both. Let's set that reservoir aside. Now we've got the reservoir out of here. We're going to take this hose and we're going to slide it out of our way. I typically like to push it all the way towards the backside of the engine. We're just keeping in mind that there is still fluid inside of this hose. You can try to remove as much as you want, but typically some still will make its way out. We're going to move along to removing the bracket which held the power steering hose in place. For this, you're going to find that there's two studs that make their way out from the body of the vehicle. One of those studs is only an alignment stud holding the bracket in the proper placement, but the upper stud has a 10mm mounting nut on it that we're going to remove so we can remove this bracket. For this, I'm going to be using a 10mm ratcheting wrench. Take hold of that bracket, give it a wiggle, and slide it out of place. There's the port that we had removed the mounting nut from. The other one, as I mentioned, is literally just where the alignment stud is located. Quick inspection of the bracket and set it aside. Now with that bracket out of place, we have a clear view of our right side VVT solenoid, right on the passenger side of the engine here. Let's start by disconnecting our electrical connector down along the bottom forward side of this. For the electrical connector, you're going to find it has a small locking tab. Go ahead and squeeze it in and we should be able to pull this out of place. I popped the lock free, so now I'm just going to try to give this a little wiggle. It should want to slide off of here. Nissan electrical connectors are typically stuck in place. It's very common. Just using my angled pick, a little bit more leverage here. Once you have it disconnected, a quick inspection of the harness, making sure there's no corrosion. This looks fine, we'll set it aside. If you were to look just below the VVT solenoid, you're going to find that there's a small metal bracket, comes right across here. It's holding this wiring harness in place. We have to dislodge the bracket. That's held in place with two 10mm mounting bolts. There's one right down in this area here. This one's fairly simple to gain access to. The next one, if you were following that bracket rearward, is tucked up just behind this area. It's a little bit more difficult to gain access to, but it's definitely doable. Let's start getting these out of here. Get my ratchet on there. Mounting bolt for this small bracket. We got that one almost out of there. Let's be careful not to drop this along the back side of the engine compartment. Now we should be able to move that bracket out of our way. Now we'll just go ahead and set that bracket out of our way. And that exposes our next two mounting bolts. You can see these two 13mm headed mounting bolts leading from our power steering bracket directly into the engine. Let's remove the pair. Okay, let's get this first bolt out of here. Now we can pause up in the engine compartment. We're going to make our way safely under the vehicle. We're looking at the back side of our power steering pump. We can see the pulley here. Along the back side, you can see where our power steering pressure line goes into the pump. We can see that we have an electrical wiring harness leading to our power steering pressure switch. And just above that, you're going to find that you have this blue connector, which is essentially just holding the wiring harness in place. We want to dislodge that from the power steering pressure line. Just go ahead and reach up along the back side there, and we're going to give this a little tug. It actually feels like it kind of separated from the wiring harness on this one, but it should stay attached. Just go ahead and pull that out and away. Now let's take hold of the wire connector leading to that power steering pressure switch. It's going to have a locking tab on this one. It's right down along the bottom. So I'm going to squeeze that in and we'll start pulling this down and out of place. It can be a little bit tight here. You could try using some pliers if necessary. A quick inspection for corrosion. This looks okay. Now we need more slack from this area, so we're going to follow the wiring harness down underneath the power steering pump. You're going to find that you have a small metal bracket. Now along the top inboard side of that bracket, you're going to find that there's an area that you can use a flat blade screwdriver. We'll put it inside there and gently start pulling this up so we can slide the wiring harness out towards the engine. Now we should be able to carefully take hold of that wiring harness, and we're going to bring it around the other side of our power steering pressure switch. Just be careful not to put too big of a tug on this. It should just barely make its way out and over. The next thing we'll do is pay attention to our 24mm banjo bolt holding our power steering pressure line to the power steering pump. We're going to go ahead and use our 24mm. Break this free, but leave it intact. We don't want to have fluid leaking out of here yet, but I do like to have this broken free. There we are. Now we're going to start looking just up and behind our power steering pressure and return lines. All the way up on this bracket right here, you can see where there's a small wiring harness attached to it. Just go ahead and use a long pry bar or a small prying device, whatever you've got, and we're just going to go ahead and pull this out of place. There we are. Now, if the plastic connector did break on you, that's okay. You can use a wire tie if necessary. Now we're going to have to start removing some mounting bolts. Along the back side of the power steering pump, you're going to find that it has a metal bracket, and the metal bracket is held in place to the back side of the power steering pump with two 12mm headed mounting bolts. For this, I'm just using a ratcheting wrench. It's easiest for me. Now there's one more mounting bolt for this bracket. For this one, I'm going to be coming from underneath the engine, just above the exhaust, coming diagonally, making my way up, and we'll be using a 16mm to start loosening this bolt. You do not need to fully remove the bolt, just loosen it enough that you can pivot the bracket as necessary. Get it on there. There we go. It's time to start draining the power steering fluid. Now to do this, I'm going to put something underneath this area to divert it down into my collection receptacle. On this application, I'm just using a large funnel. Now while having that in place to collect and divert this fluid into our collection receptacle, I can start removing that banjo bolt. We'll let this fully drain. Just give that a quick inspection. Set it aside, you will be reusing it. Now that the majority of the fluid has made its way out of the power steering system, we can continue on removing the power steering pressure line from that power steering pump. After that's dislodged, have a quick peek just above that. That's where you're going to find your return hose. For that return hose, just go ahead and squeeze on the clamp, slide it out of position, and remove the hose. Squeeze on those ears and slide it up the hose. Now we'll start removing the hose from this area. It's a little difficult to reach up in here. I'm just using a pry bar. We'll gently start pressing that up and off of the power steering pump. Just a quick inspection of that hose to confirm it's not damaged in any way. That looks good. Now there's going to be one more mounting bolt that we're going to gain access to. Just make your way directly up and above your tensioner pulley. In between the tensioner pulley and our power steering pulley, you're going to find another 13mm headed mounting bolt. Let's start removing that. Just hold on to that power steering pump. Let's go ahead and take hold of that power steering pump, and we're going to attempt to remove it. When removing it, we're going to come from along the back side here, just above where our sway bar and inner and outer tie rod end is. Let's be careful not to cause any damage to our axle or our axle boot along the way. Let's get this out of there. Let's get it over to the bench. Now on the bench, we're going to start separating the forward bracket from the power steering pump. If you were to go ahead and turn your power steering pump pulley, you're going to find that there's several 12mm headed mounting bolts holding this bracket in place. You may have to spin this to be able to gain access properly to each one of the bolts. You'll find that the holes are a little bit differently shaped. Let's start removing all of these. We're using our 12mm. Remove your bracket. A quick inspection will set it aside. There it is, friend. Okay, let's prepare our brand new power steering pump for installation. The first thing we want to do is pay attention to the orientation. We want to have it so we have the port for the return line facing straight upward. Continuing on, we're going to get our bracket in place. When we have it in place, it should be essentially in this position. Start bringing this around the back side of the pulley there. At this point, we're going to start in all three of our mounting bolts through the ports on the power steering pump pulley and snug those up. Now we're going to leave each of these loose until they're all started in so we can move the bracket around as necessary. Okay, I've got all three of them started in. Snug them up. After confirming all of those are properly tightened, we can get this in the vehicle. Before we get this into the vehicle, let's remove our protective covers. It's easiest to do when it's out. Start getting this in here. There we are. Now we're attempting to align the bracket with its mounting point. At this point, all we're going to be doing is starting in the mounting hardware. We are not tightening anything yet. Now we're making our way along the bottom back side of the power steering pump where that bracket will attach. Just go ahead and start in each of those two mounting bolts as well. Now that we've started in the lower hardware, we're making our way up into the engine compartment for the upper two pieces of hardware. Now I've just started in one of my mounting bolts. The way that I had to do that was to carefully pull up on my power steering pump pulley while holding it there. I took my other two fingers here and I just slid the bolt right into where it needed to be. If I didn't lift up on it, it's not going to line up. Now that I have it lined up, I'm just going to go ahead and snug it up a little bit with my fingers here, and then we'll continue on to the next one. Another one in here. That one lines up a lot easier. Now that we have all the hardware started in, we can go ahead and snug it up. I'm going to start from the top here. Once we have both of those snug, we can torque those to 10 foot-pounds. They're both snug. I'm going to attempt to torque these. Not much room for a torque wrench in here. If you find you have a hard time getting a torque wrench in here, just make sure those bolts are nice and snug. It's essentially 120 inch-pounds. I'm just going to use a long 1/4 inch ratchet. Yep, that one's good. Let's get the next one. Continuing on, let's get that 10mm headed mounting bolt in position just underneath where the VVT solenoid is. Start it in, snug it up. Okay, right there is bottomed out. Just take it a tiny bit further here, confirming it's tight. Once you have that in place, we'll continue on with our bracket. We'll get the bracket in place, start in each one of the two mounting bolts before tightening either of them. Once they are started in, you can go ahead and snug those up as well. Okay, there's bottomed out. Tiny bit further on that one. Same thing for the next. Bottomed out. Just a tiny bit further here. Now it's time for the electrical connector. Let's pull that up into position here. Listen for a click from that. I'm going to try to pull that out of place now. It should not fall off. It's time for the hose bracket. We're going to get this in position, sliding it over each of our two studs. The upper mounting stud will have our 10mm mounting nut. Start it on, snug it up. bottomed out. Take hold of that bracket, give it a wiggle, it should not fall out of place. We're going to bring the power steering hose over towards where that power steering reservoir should be. And then we'll get the power steering reservoir close to being in the proper position so we can install our hose. Bring this over here. Once the hose is in place, let's get the rest of that reservoir in position. Couple light taps, driving it down. Attempt to lift it up and out of position. We're pausing in the engine compartment and making our way back inside the passenger side wheel well. Just underneath those upper mounting bolts that we had just finished tightening from up top, we also have this 13mm headed mounting bolt located just above our tensioner along the side of our power steering pump pulley. Go ahead and snug that up and we'll torque it to 21 foot-pounds. Now we're going to torque the mounting bolts that hold that power steering bracket to the power steering pump. The torque for these is 144 inch-pounds. Perfect. We're making our way along the back side of the power steering pump. Let's start with that lower bolt. We're going to snug that up. The torque for each of these two bolts that we're doing next is 12 foot-pounds, if you can get your torque wrench in this area. Otherwise, just make sure they're nice and snug. I'm going to snug this up with my 12mm wrench. Right there is bottomed out. Nice and tight. After tightening both of those, we're going to go just above that area. We have that 16mm headed mounting bolt that we loosened but left in place. Let's go ahead and snug it up and torque that to 33 foot-pounds. Moving along, we're going to resecure our wiring harness into that top port on that bracket. Our clip broke. I'm going to be replacing it. Once again, you can just use a wire tie if necessary. Now let's secure this wire into the manifold shield. Just slide it into that little groove. It's time for the return hose up along the top there. Take hold of that, we'll line it up, slide it into position. As for the clamp, go ahead and squeeze those locking tabs together, slide it into place, and we should be able to release it. At this point, I have it slid down as far as it can go and get the clamp back in place. It's time to prepare to install our power steering pressure line. For this, let's make sure we have our banjo bolt cleaned. We're going to take one of our crush gaskets and slide it all the way down up against the head of that banjo bolt. Continuing on, we would want to start sliding this through that power steering pressure line. Once it's slid through, go ahead and install your other gasket on the other side of that line. At that point, you'll have one on each side, and we can start putting this into the power steering pump. So I've got my gasket right up against the head of that. Start sliding it through the line. Second gasket on the other side. Now, just as I said, I have one gasket on each side of that line. Let's start this in by hand and we'll snug it up with our 24mm. Double check, make sure it's properly aligned. Okay, right there is bottomed out. Once you have it snug, just go ahead and take it a little bit further, confirming it's tight, and we are putting a little bit of pressure on each one of those two gaskets. Now let's start paying attention to where our power steering pressure switch is. As you remember, we had to carefully stretch this wiring over the opposite side, so now we're just going to bring it back over to its original position on the outboard side. Continuing on, we can reconnect our electrical connector for that pressure switch. Let's go ahead and line it up, we'll press it in. Audible click, a light tug confirming it's properly secured in place. Just above that, we'll secure our wiring harness. We're just going to swing that blue tab over, lock it in up against the line. Now let's follow that wiring harness down. Just underneath the power steering pump, we have another mounting bracket. Start sliding that into place. We're just going to take it and we'll slide it right into this area. Before we move along to our serpentine belt, let's make sure we clean up the area, removing any oils or debris. Just going to use some parts cleaner. And then double check around that line as well. Now it's time for the serpentine belt. As I mentioned during the removal process, the belt goes over some pulleys and under others. Let's make sure we have it in the proper orientation. Once we get it close, we'll continue on with applying pressure here clockwise, relieving tension, and we can slide it over the last pulley. This is easiest to save the idler pulley for last. Just want to make sure it's sitting on each one of the pulleys properly, especially those grooved ones. If you're off by even one groove, it can destroy the belt and potentially cause other damage. When installing the belt, you want to confirm that it's properly seated all the way around each one of the pulleys. Make your adjustments as necessary. We can release tension here once you've completed that. Let's get our splash shield in here. Just be careful for our ABS wire and our flex hose as we start bringing this into position. One in over here, these forward two in here. Down along the bottom, we have our strap. Let's go ahead and get this in position into the frame. One last quick inspection in this area and we can reinstall our wheel. Once you've started on all 5 of your 21mm lug nuts, we're going to bottom these out in a crisscross manner. We'll get the wheel back on the ground and torque each of the lug nuts to 83 foot-pounds. With the wheel safely on the ground, let's torque each of these in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Let's fill up our power steering reservoir. When filling this, we're going to use the manufacturer fluid, but you can also use Dextron 6 transmission fluid. When filling this, we want to be up to our maximum line. Go ahead and start adding fluid. I'm using a funnel so I don't make any mess. Now I've added fluid up to my maximum line. The next thing we have to do is have both front wheels up and off of the ground. We'll put the key in the on position, and you don't need to have the vehicle running. We're going to go ahead and turn the steering wheel all the way to one side, pause, and then all the way to the other. Repeat this process several times. What we need to do is make our way out here to the power steering reservoir in between, and we're going to double check to make sure our fluid level is still up to par. Commonly, while doing this, it's going to start removing the air from in the system and forcing it to the highest point, which is in the reservoir. As air comes up, fluid's going to go down. Now, after turning the wheel side to side several times and double checking our fluid, we've confirmed that we have no more air bubbles making their way up inside the reservoir. After that, double check to make sure that your fluid level is still up to par. Start up the vehicle, let it run for a short while, and make sure you don't hear an odd whining noise. If you do, it's coming from the power steering system, and that means you haven't bled out all the air. Assuming that it is good after running the vehicle for a short while, you can go ahead and triple check that fluid level now, and then reinstall your cap. Let's get our plastic cover in place. Just want to slide this down on here. Align your push pin port and install it. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our power steering pump. At this point, you just want to go ahead and start up the vehicle again, and we're going to double check for leaks. We don't want to have any power steering fluid leaks. Aside from that, just triple check your belt as well, close the hood, and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.